I'm so happy someone made a fucking video about this.
This is Jillian Vesey, aka Pixielocks, and Pixielocks is known as a content creator slash lolcow. Jillian began her career as a pansexual Lolita lifestyle creator who later then dropped it when it became problematic. I was not familiar with the term Lolita, so I went to Google and looked it up. Lolita typically refers to a character or a style inspired by the novel Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. The novel tells the story of a middle-aged man who becomes sexually obsessed with a 12-year-old girl named Dolores Hayes, who he nicknames Lolita. The term Lolita has since been used to describe a young girl who is sexually precocious or dresses in a sexually suggestive manner. And of course, like anyone else, I thought, ew, gross, until I learned that there is a difference between what a Lolita is and Lolita fashion. In contemporary culture, Lolita also refers to a fashion subculture primarily in Japan and other parts of the world that emphasizes modesty, femininity, and a doll-like appearance. It is important to note that while the fashion style uses the term Lolita, it is distinct from the novel's theme of sexualization and exploitation of young girls. Instead, Lolita fashion enthusiasts emphasize creativity, self-expression, and a love for cute and elegant clothing styles. Although she has created content for the last 9 years, she has spread herself pretty thin over a multitude of platforms before settling back on YouTube. It's important to know that she has had a history with quote-unquote severe mental health issues, as well as not doing good things to yourself. There are people that believe she has a large ego inflated by a skill set that she doesn't actually have, which leads to a narcissistic behavior. This could be explained by the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is as follows. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias where individuals with low ability in a particular domain tend to overestimate their skill level. This bias occurs because people who lack knowledge or expertise in a specific area often fail to recognize their own incompetence. Essentially, they are unaware of their own limitations and therefore mistakenly believe that they are more competent than they actually are. She is fascinated at the notion of exploring and trying on multiple mental illnesses, particularly fixating on dissociative identity disorder. Now, she claims to be diagnosed with DID, however, I feel that there are multiple pieces of evidence that blow this diagnosis out of the water. The first piece of evidence I would like to submit to the jury is a video uploaded to the Pixielocks YouTube channel on March 19th of 2020, in which Pixielocks herself says that they are not a part of the DID community.
I had been starting to see DID videos pop up in my recommended over the course of 2019, really, because you guys know I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder last year in the spring. Actually, I remembered I was diagnosed on Valentine's Day, so like, I love me.
To understand the importance of her admitting to this diagnosis, we have to understand a little bit about BPD. BPD is characterized by unstable moods, behaviors, and relationships. Individuals with BPD often experience intense emotional swings, impulsivity, fear of abandonment, and unstable self-image. They may engage in self-destructive behaviors and have difficulty regulating their emotions. While dissociative symptoms can occur in BPD, these do not meet the criteria for a diagnosis of DID. While there can be a comorbidity of different psychiatric disorders, including BPD and DID, one does not transform into the other. BPD does not evolve into DID, nor does DID develop from BPD. They are considered separate and distinct conditions with their own diagnostic criteria and treatment approaches. So here you have it. The words out of her mouth is that she has BPD, not DID. As a matter of fact, she didn't even know what DID was until she started paying attention to creators on YouTube.
I knew nothing about DID before I found Nin and Nan and all the other systems on YouTube, and I started researching it there. I really didn't understand.
That's kind of weird, because I would imagine that somebody that has gone through repeated violent trauma as a child and potentially would have had voices in their head talking to them as a child, they would have understood what potentially DID could have been. And while we're on this topic, let's take a look at the creators that she idolized.
So basically, I was definitely on a big YouTube rabbit hole for like the entire year, and still up to this day, researching different things about BPD and other personality disorders and dissociation, which is a symptom that is one of the main symptoms of my BPD is dissociation. So through rabbit holing and clicking through YouTube, I started absolutely falling in love with all these different DID YouTubers, specifically Dissociated and Team Pinata, because Nan of Team Pinata also has BPD, and their videos have really helped me understand my symptoms better.
This post on the Dissociate DID subreddit says, "What happened with Nan? I wonder what happened to the people that you idolize. It would be a shame if they turned out to be a weirdo. Nan got canceled for drawing sneeze themed CP. Nin dropped them like a hot potato once they were outed as a, you know what, although it has been speculated that they're still an item, their voice is super weird, you're not wrong." So you want me to trust you, and you trust people that are lolly drawers? Maybe the first definition of Lolita does apply.
I can only imagine the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, I don't want to think about how many people are going to
Pixielocks videos.
and really taking that as fact, and really taking what she says as truth, and running with that, and hating on vulnerable systems, because DID is formed through intense repeated childhood trauma. These people are vulnerable.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. It's kind of weird how you know all of this about DID, yet you have no idea that you were also going through DID. Then again, part of having DID is amnesia, which you could have conveniently forgot you even had in the first place. I guess the real question would be, what would somebody have to gain out of faking this disorder? Would they fit in with a community that they were not a part of, maybe?
So to see Dissociated on Anthony's video, it was so beautiful, it made me cry. I came to school the next day, and I was chatting in the halls with my two other friends in fashion who I didn't even know were also in on all the, like, Dissociated lore. Because, you know, there's quite a lot of information you pick up when you're following DID YouTubers. There's a lot of different names and quirks and personalities and inside jokes and things, so it's really fun when you meet other people in real life that, like, follow these people. You're like, oh my god, did you see that video? I love Jeremy. They're so cute together. Oh my god, the proposal. Tee-hee. And all of this absolute joy and wonder that the Anthony Padilla dissociative identity disorder brought, I think, the community. I'm not in the DID community, of course. I'm only looking in from the outside in the adjacent mental health sphere, I guess. But it was a really great thing, and it was a really wonderful representation, and Anthony Padilla is just a fantastic human being, and it was a great thing.
I'm sure most of you who are watching this video knows exactly where DID comes from, and for the rest of you that don't, let me explain. Because what she's describing as a
really great thing
stems from child abuse so violent that the brain fragments in order to save itself. So I already don't trust this person, as I feel that they are not telling the truth, so in all honesty, they could be lying about all this information and them not being a part of the DID club, because no one would know, because they don't remember. So the whole Nin and Nan and Team Pinata thing aged horribly. You know what else aged horribly? Maybe a blog from 2016 that Pixie wrote. Since I've graduated from high school and entered the real world, my life has consisted of surprisingly stress-free and happy days. I've decided to work full-time instead of jumping right into post-secondary and exploring the world of fashion design on my own before I get a formal education. So apparently she's graduated and living stress-free days. Isn't that nice? So where is the stress coming from that created the DID? I think we might be able to find that answer within her alters, so let's take a look at them.
Hi, my name is Jarek, and I am the co-host of the system that's up in here. So I have been around since the body was, I think, 13, 14 era. It's all a blur. And I'm here to do my Meet the Altar. What is your name? I just said that. My name is Jarek. A lot of people call me Jer. I thought that we made it up. It was a name that I didn't just like come with. We kind of had to search for one. My name almost became something similar to a person tied to trauma. The names that were coming naturally to me, there were like 2 or 3 names I had that kind of felt right. We realized, oh shit, These are all really similar to, not an abuser, but someone really, who traumatized us in the past. So that's where we pivoted, and I went, oh wait, shit, I don't want to have any ties to that person. Not out of hatred, just out of moving on. So that's when I turned to Jill and I kind of asked to like workshop it a bit, and we came up with Jarek. I think I heard it in Star Trek or something. And I found out recently it's Jinx Monsoon's real name. My age, so with dissociative identity disorder, I didn't do the whole preamble explaining the disorder. I assume if you've made it here, you know what DID is and what an alter is. But also you might just be on Pixie's channel and not know what's going on, so I should explain a little bit. So basically in DID, parts can have kind of felt internal ages, and these ages can be completely symbolic. They can represent kind of the cognitive like level, the kind of intelligence, the social skill. Like we have a 4 to 6 year old part who very much acts like a 4, 5, 6 year old, and I split off at 13. And my felt age ever since then has been in another little ballpark of 14 to 16. In the past couple of months, our system has had a lot of changes, and a lot of changes particularly pertaining to me. I split off a part. It's our first split since 2019, November, which was Cliff.
So let me get this straight. Jarek was your first split up until 2018, where you split off Cliff. Then how do you explain this?
Hello, Confetti Club. It is Pixie, and today is Mental Health Day. And I'm going to attempt to use this day as a kick in my own ass to do something that I have been meaning to do since earlier this year. Earlier this year, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. I've been told back when I was, I think, 15 or 14, I was in the hospital for some ideation, and they did the whole psych eval on me, and I was diagnosed with GAD, MDD, disordered eating, and they were like, you have some hints of borderline, but you're too young / don't have enough to diagnose it. I believe I was diagnosed in like April, I want to say, if that gives you a time zone in your head for how long I've been dealing with this.
So in your own words, you didn't even have a full diagnosis of BPD until 2019, yet you split off an alter in 2018 that you didn't even know you had because you didn't have DID then? So let's go back and take a look at Jarek's story about how he came around, because he claims to have been there since the body was about 13 years old.
When about did you split? I just talked about that. I split when we were 13. And it's probably the most like obvious and clear-cut split like of our entire system and our entire life. It's like we were abused, badly traumatized, hugely at like a huge turning point in our lives, graduating elementary school and starting middle school. So yeah, it was very clear that I split off right there and then for that purpose, to keep us alive.
13 years old, graduating elementary school, going to middle school. You're Canadian, right? Because according to EduCanada CA, in general, elementary school in Canada runs from kindergarten to grade 6, junior high or middle school runs from grade 7 to 8, and high school runs from grade 9 to 12. Now that we've established middle school starts at grade 7, let's take a look at what age most kids are when they go into grade 7. According to medium.com, grade 7 in Canada starts at the age of 11. So 11 is 2 years younger than 13 that you knew you split off, but you could have accounted for a maximum of up to 17 years, but you never did a thing where you gave yourself an opportunity to go under 13. You deadlined it at 13, so that doesn't look very good on you now, does it?
I spent years thinking that my main issue was my anxiety and my eating disorder, but it's been borderline all along, and that has been a kind of crazy thing to come to terms with. Just like, since that day that I was in the hospital when I was 14, 15, I don't even know what age I was, it's most likely always been BPD.
See, this is very interesting because in your own words, it's been BPD this whole time. Before that, you thought it was your anxiety, maybe your eating disorder, but you never once mentioned the violent trauma that happened to you as a child, which caused your brain to fragment and break. Because remember, you said this.
What about did you split? I was born, so I do tend to agree with the structural theory of dissociation, or the theory of structural dissociation, always mix up those words, where it's thought that everyone is born with these unintegrated ego states as a baby, and that's why babies can kind of flip so quickly between suddenly they're crying and wailing and they desperately need comfort, and just a second ago they were very, very peaceful and completely fine with their little squeaky thing or whatever, and then suddenly they're like hungry and wailing, and then they're like hee-hee-hee-ha. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And then with trauma that stops those parts and ego states from forming together, I don't want to get too lingo-y on you, and I definitely am not here to try and educate or be some sort of educational source of knowledge. I'm just trying to explain how I understand my splitting to work.
All right, you're gonna have to trust me on this one. This one's gonna be long, just make sure you stay through it. The theory of structural disassociation works off the assumption that no one is born with an integrated personality. Instead, infants operate based off a loose collection of different ego states that handle different needs, feeding attachment to a caregiver, exploring the world around them. Over time, these ego states naturally integrate into one coherent and cohesive personality, usually by the ages of 6 or 9. However, childhood trauma disrupts this process. So the trauma that happens to a child to stop this process of integration has to happen before the age of 6. And this is where I could be wrong, as I haven't watched all of her videos, but the only trauma that I've seen her reference is the trauma at the age of 13. And that trauma at the age of 13 ages her out of this being DID. Not to mention the criteria for the DSM-5 to diagnose DID is different from the diagnosis of BPD, which you barely met in the first place. Now, it is entirely possible, but extremely rare for someone to have BPD and DID in the same diagnosis, because BPD, much like DID, is extremely rare and only affects 1 to 2% of the population.
When about did you split? That one's important. Yeah, I split around the same time as Jerem.
Wait a minute, who is Jerem? Do you mean Jarek? Are you having a hard time keeping up with the alters that you're faking?
And it was from the same trauma. Obviously he split off to be more of a, like, intimidating as much as we can be at our, bodily, like, 5'1". The intimidating, kind of thick-skinned, spiky, like, rebellious part, and I split to handle the sexual assault aspect. So, yeah, it doesn't affect me emotionally, which is crazy to say, but as a part, it does not affect me emotionally that I know that I exist, because we were raped. It's just a fact of the matter, and I split off because we just simply needed someone that would enjoy it, and take it. Because it was inescapable and happening multiple times over multiple months.
I don't want to speculate that this is not true. However, there are things that would lead me to believe that is not quite exactly what happened.
I struggle with a little bit of seasonal sadness. I don't want to say SAD, seasonal affective disorder, because, like, I haven't been diagnosed, and I don't like to say anything I haven't been diagnosed with. I like to talk to a doc first. But I struggle with a little bit of sadness here and then, and my anxiety is, like, through the roof. But it's, like, happy with a layer of panic instead of, like, incredibly suicidal, like, had to be admitted to a hospital so I wouldn't kill myself. Mental illness is just, like, in my genes. It sucks. It is just a hereditary thing. But there are also some external factors that did not help. The first being I was in a very unhealthy, power-divided relationship. When I was 13, and she was 16.
So in this video, you describe it as a problematic power dynamic, but in later videos, when it helps to bolster your credibility of trauma, you claim it was a hard R. And not only do you conveniently misremember something to pin something on somebody that potentially never happened, you also admit that nothing bad happened to you when you were a little kid either. You were just playing Club Penguin and doing normal little kid things.
I can't really remember a whole lot from when I was like 9 or younger. Like, there's a couple memories here and there, but like when you're like 13, you're kind of just learning your sense of self. You're learning what you like, you're learning your personality, who you are. You don't really have that in elementary school. You're just kind of a kid, and everyone's just kind of a kid. And so for me to go from just being a kid in elementary school playing Club Penguin and like living my goddamn life and going straight from that to like and everything being awful, like I didn't know that there was life other than that.
Because remember, the fragmentation of DID happens before the age of 6, maybe the latest at 9. Is that it? Is that the nail in the coffin? Can I end the video right here? Because right now I feel like Kendrick Lamar just laying the smackdown on J. Cole and Drake. Fuck the Pixie. It's just Big Me Ninja. Bow. But no, we're not going to end it there, because I do believe in forgiveness when forgiveness is asked. But until then, it is no fucking mercy. So I recorded that part last night before the fucking bottom fell out and the bombshell hit the ground. I just want to say, before we get into this next segment, I do not have the emotional intelligence to be able to deal with this, so I'm going to navigate these waters the best that I can. This part involves the R word that she claims happened when she was 13, and I want to make my intentions well known. I never set out to disprove this, as I genuinely believe this claim, and I would hate for someone not to believe a claim when something legitimate happens, as it discredits people and actual victims. This is Jillian's old DeviantArt page. I'm not sure when it was created, however, I know there were posts going back to 2012 where she was 13 turning 14. So bear in mind, she was a child at the time, she was a young teenager, and young teenagers say and do edgy things. Back in the day, a popular thing to do on social media was take a series of questions and answer them and post them for your friends to answer. And here are some of the things that Jillian answered to the questions that people posted. In the top, you can see her username and the date that it was posted on March 5th, 2012, where she said that she's aging and such. Down below, you can see Tyo Win saying, "Happy birthday, Jillian, blah, 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 blah. I love you, Jillian. Jillian, you're great. Jillian, you're the GOAT. You're goated. You're OP. You're overpowered. You're over 9,000. It doesn't matter what the person actually said. I just wanted you to understand that they were talking to Jillian. Now, that might not be enough proof for you. There's a million Jillians in this world. Well, here's a little bit more. This is me. You guys really don't know much about me, do you? Like the majority of my watchers. So this is me. My name is Jillian Amanda Vesey. I'm 13 years old. I'm slightly insane. I'm loud and obnoxious, yada, yada, yada. If you want to pause and read it, you can. The reason I'm bringing any of this up is there's some contradictory information brought up on this and some general not good things that Jillian has said in the past. Maybe she's grown. Maybe we were all angsty teens. However, I would imagine if you were genderqueer and had mental deficiencies, you probably wouldn't have said some of the things that she's said. My life is actually R-slur. Thoughts and cookies, so I'm currently waiting for cookies to cool and baking another batch, so I thought, what's a better time to write a rambly, pointless journal entry? Also, I'm currently being R-slur and burning my tongue on an uncool cookie, but damn, they're good. I'm Master Chef. Master Chef. We thank you. Yes, you know who you are. You are amazing. This journal is random. Don't get graped by a lorry driver now. I love everything. ASJK. This post about her joking around about Sirius SA was from 2011, which puts her around 13, and I have a dark fucking sense of humor. I am one of the darkest human beings that I know. And even I draw a line here because that's not funny, and I understand that if something happened and oftentimes we as comedians would use comedy to get out that inner turmoil that we can't quite express in any other medium, but Jesus Christ, this is dark. That is if the claim is real, and again, I do want to believe her because I don't want to believe that someone would lie about something so significant for attention. Because on one hand, this could ruin somebody's life if it is a false allegation, and on the other hand, it discredits actual people that go through SA and violent trauma. Here's another one in the beginning of 2012. She's almost 14 at this point, I believe, and she's making another joke about the R word. Okay, good news. The next day, she follows up with another joke about her not being R-worded at the event that she went to, so that's great news. Question number 19, refresh your dashboard. Whose blog do you prefer, the first or fifth person to appear? They're all F slurs, but 3 is Matt Smith. This post in November of 2011, again, she is 13. God, this one is huge. This seriously going to get personal. Are you ready? Yeah, I guess I'll really say anything. I just hope no one gets offended, and I mean no one, not just you, person who thinks I mean only them. I'm just gonna be honest here. I believe that everything she has wrote on here is actually a true and honest depiction of who she was at the time. And I'll be honest, reading through a lot of this was not easy because I struggle with mental health. I know some of those struggles that she talks about in this, and it's a dark fucking place to be, and I couldn't imagine what it would have been like for her at 13. Then the question was asked, what was the last time you felt honestly broken? And the answer was, the weekend Shelly and I were doing homework, so like a few weeks ago, but as previously stated, Shelly is an absolute darling, and I was totally okay within like an hour. She goes on to say the worst pain that she's ever felt was menstruation other than self-inflicted. So with all the things that I've just shown and read, I am so conflicted here because I do want to believe the victim. At the same time, the slurs, the R jokes, the R word, I don't know, and I hate that I'm even freaking the word, I can't even think about it. I'm just so conflicted. And I'll be honest, reading these posts actually made me second guess making this entire video, and then I realized that I am just reading the memories of a ghost because that person no longer exists. Jillian is gone and Pixie killed her.
Because I have this internet presence, I knew that this would not go well. I knew that I had to have it like etched in stone on my grave by God, or like the internet was not gonna fucking believe me. So we paid $2,200 and we got a proper psyche eval done, which was by psychologists, not therapists. And in Canada, at least, a diagnosis is given verbally.
This is very interesting because this is technically true. In Canada, mental health diagnoses are typically communicated verbally by mental health professionals during a clinical assessment. Here is an overview of how mental health diagnoses are given in Canada. The initial consultation, the process usually begins with an initial consultation where the individual discusses their symptoms and concerns with a mental health professional such as a psychiatrist, psychologist, or licensed therapist. Comprehensive evaluation. The mental health professional conducts a comprehensive evaluation which may include clinical interviews, psychological testing, and observation. And the last being diagnosis communication. After the evaluation, the mental health professional will discuss their findings with the individual. The diagnosis is usually communicated verbally during a face-to-face meeting. So yes, technically she is correct. It is communicated verbally to the patient. However,
the psychologist told me to my face, "How do you feel about receiving this diagnosis? How do you feel?" And I'm so fucking lame. I literally said, "So I can tell people I have this, right? Like I'm diagnosed with this." I literally said those words and she said, "Yes." So on paper, does it say diagnostic impression, dissociative identity disorder? Yes, because that is the impression of the report that the psychologist uses to inform her diagnosis, which is given verbally. I have said this so many times, and I can say it till I'm blue in the face, but just the absolute misunderstanding of the health system that has been weaponized to try and debunk my mental illness is absolutely ridiculous. So I hope this finally explains that situation. I am officially diagnosed with DID. Yes, the paper says diagnostic impression. Yes, in a prior video, I said a diagnostic impression is not a diagnosis. I thought that people would just know that I wasn't lying, because why would I lie about that? And we're gonna get into more why would anyone lie about this and why would I ruin my life on purpose in a second. But yeah, it is given verbally, and I embarrassingly specifically asked, I can tell people I have DID, right? I have DID, right? You're telling me, right? For sure. And she said, yes. Are you okay? And I said, yeah, I need to go call my mom.
Hi, I just wanted to add a little note that, yeah, it seems like some people think that you get a certificate or some sort of official standardized, like, card or document or ticket or something, but the diagnosis is given verbally, and whatever is written on the paper is the way that those professionals do it. There is no standardized national or international, like, card that they give you. It is on my record, of course, that I'm diagnosed. There's no official certificate or stamp. People keep asking for proof, but there is no magic golden ticket that says I have DID.
Listen to this claim very closely. She says she has no official documentation of a diagnosis, only a diagnostic impression. And this is important because words matter, especially in a medical field where life and death decisions are made based on words. The terms diagnostic impression and diagnosis are both used in the context of medical and mental health assessments, but they have distinct meanings and uses. A diagnostic impression is a preliminary tentative assessment of a patient's condition based on the initial information gathered during the evaluation. It reflects the clinician's early understanding of what might be the underlying issue. So a diagnostic impression is not the same as an actual legitimized diagnosis, and pretending that it is not fair enough. It is problematic and detrimental to people's actual health. Even speaking legalistically, this is a problem because medical bills are coded to certain lines, and you would never code a medical impression assuming that it's a diagnosis. So in her own words, her paperwork says diagnostic impression, which is not a diagnosis, so legally she has no paperwork telling us that she is diagnosed. On the other side, she is not in theory being billed for a diagnosis, she is being billed for a diagnostic impression. So I can't imagine a world where somebody would look at this from the outside and say, yes, she has this diagnosis. And remember, she said this.
But the diagnosis is given verbally, and whatever is written on the paper is the way that those professionals do it. There is no standardized national or international, like, card that they give you. It is on my record, of course, that I'm diagnosed. There's no official certificate or stamp. People keep asking for proof, but there is no magic golden ticket that says I have DID.
So you're saying that the medical records don't have the answer inside of them that people are looking for, that the medical records aren't the proof that people are asking? You're saying there is no proof? You say that there is no paperwork or card or anything that is standardized nationally or internationally that confirms a diagnosis of DID. Well, then what the fuck do they send to the insurance companies? Brain scans, medical assessments, any of the criterion for the DSM-5 that is recorded on paperwork, yet you say there is no paperwork proving a diagnosis. How is that fucking possible unless there is no diagnosis? Hey guys, do you know what rhymes with diagnosis? My psychosis. This might literally be the biggest case of trust me bro, you had to be there I have ever seen.
A very toxic and very hidden trait in the female narcissist that isn't noticed as often or talked about very much is what I defined as feigned innocence. And this is a big one, and they all do it. This subtle but impactful behavior involves the art of acting naive or unaware, particularly when faced with their own misdeeds. So for example, they adopt an air of innocence as if they were oblivious to the consequences of their behavior. And this isn't accidental. It's a calculated move to manipulate the situation. The primary objective is always to evade accountability and deflect blame onto others. So the guise of innocence becomes a shield, allowing these women to navigate situations with an aura of blamelessness. It's a strategic maneuver that can leave those around them questioning their own perceptions and grappling with the complexities of holding the narcissist accountable.
It's so many things, so much information that when I was making my video about my DID diagnosis for the first time, God, did I have a million things on my mind, and did I not remember that, oh, I said something about diagnostic impression, this is diagnostic impression, I have a global audience, they may not understand how it works in Canada.
In all reality, this video is now over 30 minutes, and I can sit here all day and just poke holes in her narrative because none of it makes sense. And after reading some of the posts on her DeviantArt page that were extremely dark, I didn't want to leave this video on a bad note in honor of the girl that Jillian used to be, the one that was crying out for help. Also the one that used to drop slurs, but still crying out nonetheless. And I'll be honest, it would be extremely hypocritical for me to sit here and act like I've never dropped slurs before, because every time Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar comes on, I'm going hard in the paint. Certified lover boy, certified I can't say that word because it is a slur on YouTube. However, it is an accurate descriptor of Dr. Disrespect. So I reached out to Michelle Manna, who is known for her extensive coverage on all things DID related, and asked her thoughts on what type of detriment she sees in the DID community when people fake this diagnosis.
Imagine first getting diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder. This is a confirmation that you have endured severe childhood trauma. So you go on the internet and you see people who are self-diagnosed and they have perfect communication with their alternative states. When you might have little to no communication with these parts, you see a heavily stigmatized and glamorized version online. I've interviewed with multiple people with dissociative identity disorder who find it highly distressing to see people just using alters and their different clothes and what they wear rather than talking about flashbacks, amnesia, self-harm symptoms, PTSD. Meanwhile, there are statistics that show that 70% of individuals with real DID, not imitative DID, have attempted in their life. This can lead to denial, isolation, and hopelessness for the person with DID. You may no longer feel comfortable or valid. You might feel like you need to exaggerate your own symptoms in order to get validation online. People with genuine DID have been attacked by these imitative versions of DID and ended up in inpatient stays and worse. This can lead to isolation, withdrawal, and loneliness within the individual, which can complicate recovery. Along with nowadays, healthcare professionals are becoming more aware of this imitative version online, so they are less likely to want to actually diagnose someone with it. Some people might even be misled by symptoms and advice and turn to negative or maladaptive coping skills. You see people showing a good side where they get along with all of their alters friends in their head, which demoralizes the realness of the disorder. It's not only the fault of these portrayals that some believe DID doesn't exist whatsoever, but they certainly aren't helping. In a lot of these videos, there is a promotion of the separation of these identity states, which is the opposite of what is encouraged within healing. Whether or not your goal is final fusion or functional multiplicity, it can be difficult to see these versions online that don't really entertain either. It's more just like, oh, look at my alters. You know, it's like my alternative state doesn't do my homework and go online and create all these fun TikToks and clean the house, but rather they turn to maladaptive coping skills. You might have difficulties in daily life functioning, work, relationships. You might have maladaptive behaviors that show up on your body that you can't remember. Your reality of DID impairs daily life functioning. It can create a jealousy for people who have a happy system alters within their head. But anyways, my name is Michelle Manna, and thank you so much to Scapegoat for having me on your channel.
Please go follow Michelle, because she uses big words that confuse me and I have to Google, and she knows so much more on this topic because she spent a lot of time devoted to her craft, which has been settled in the DID realm. So Michelle, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much, because I could not have said this better. I've tried to say maladaptive a million times and it does not work. Again, for legal reasons, these are not claims on my part. They're just speculations of information that I have found, collected, and laid out in video form. But with all that being said, let me know know down in the comments section, do you think she's faking DID or any of the other claims that she has brought to attention? But let me know, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, come be a member of the petting zoo where you can see all types of exhibits on display. To Jillian, I am sorry that you weren't able to get the help that you needed as a teenager when you were clearly screaming for attention and help. But I have no remorse for Pixie, so welcome to the fucking petting zoo.